What if the reason that you're unable to enjoy your success is because you have a secret fear of being happy? Now, I've been coaching people for a long time, and this is one of the hardest belief shifts they ever have to make because everyone seems to truly believe that we are trying to be happy. The idea that they might actually be trying to prevent happiness seems so ridiculous that they've never considered it, and yet it perfectly explains their patterns of behavior. So we're going to have a look at this weird belief, this weird fear, and try to figure out why is it that people achieve to keep themselves unhappy. Now this one applies to nearly every client I've ever had, but I want to tell you about one called Andy. If you met him and heard about his life circumstances, you would probably be jealous. He's in the top 1% of pretty much every category there is. Financially, he's got a wonderful family, he's in fantastic physical shape, he's a endurance athlete. There's pretty much nothing this guy doesn't have. He's living the dream, but if you knew what it was like inside his brain, you would be shocked at how unhappy he is. He's ticked all the boxes you're supposed to tick, and yet he spends a vast majority of his time, or at least before working with me, he did, feeling incredibly anxious and catastrophizing disasters in his imagination. So let's have a look at what's going on in Andy's mind that stops him from enjoying doing everything right. Quick reminder, if you haven't yet, come and join the free Brojo community in school. The link's in the description or the comments below, and you can find so much more material like this. So just recently I came across a term that finally defines something I've known about for decades, which is cherophobia. Short version is the fear of being happy or being content, an aversion to anything that might lead to you enjoying yourself. People who have this tend to behave in a way that actually prevents long-term happiness or pleasure, celebration. While it might look like they're striving to succeed and make their life better, if you look closely, especially their micro behaviors, they really don't let themselves actually have any fun. Most of my clients describe it as a sense of fate, this idea that there are scales of judgment out there, and that if you enjoy yourself too much, if you get too far ahead of yourself, get too complacent with how well things are going, there will be a reckoning, a balancing act, where everything will be taken away or you'll be severely harmed in some vague way. This kind of sense that so long as you're stressed and worrying and not really enjoying your achievements, you'll be allowed to keep them. But if you chill out and go, fucking, I'm crushing it, I'm a really good person, God or fate or something will look at that and be like, right, this guy needs some humbling. I'm going to crush him. So generally, that's what they have in common, this idea that they're being judged, that there is some sort of karma out there, that you can't enjoy yourself too much, and that the punishment for enjoying yourself too much is it will all be taken away, whatever that means. This leads them to basically really never be enough. They set up systems where they're never good enough. They always have to keep moving. They can't stop and chill out. Nothing's ever finished. No achievement is high enough. There's always a kind of sense of lack, and they actually prefer having that sense of lack. They get quite anxious and worried when there's nothing to do and things are going well and everything's on point. They will actually self-sabotage to create new problems just to get rid of the unease of everything going so well. This is actually one of the reasons they're so successful and why they achieve so much is they're constantly solving problems. They don't let anything kind of get carried away. Because what happens to a high achiever is when things start going well, they get paranoid and suspicious. It's just a sense that this ain't right, that something bad's going to happen. They feel very reluctant to enjoy anything or accept accolades. They're resistant to compliments and praise. They push back on these things. I mean, they can accept those things and they can occasionally enjoy themselves so long as they know that there are problems still unfixed, so long as that they can, sort of play false humble or self-deprecating in a way that kind of balances it out. But they can't just keep cruising and enjoy themselves. They can't acknowledge that they are crushing it and that they're doing really well consistently over time and that they're a great person. They would feel like that's too much of a provocation, that it's going to lead to some sort of disaster. So essentially, they have a superstitious belief, which is quite ironic because they're usually high achievers are quite rational, creative people. They're usually pretty good at solving problems in a way that actually solves the problem, otherwise they wouldn't be so successful. But then they have these weird superstitious beliefs like if things get good, something bad must follow. The idea that The universe is wired in some way to balance things out. There's zero evidence for this whatsoever, but they believe it very strongly. I think it comes from childhood conditioning, that they're raised in such a way where this was true, that anything good was followed by bad. And it usually meant that good and bad were actually the same thing. So, for example, if you succeeded, you'd still get punished for the success. Let's say a child wins the race. If they've got hypercritical pressure parents, as I call them, then the parent might say, like, well, you didn't win it by much. And so that wasn't really a win. They actually got a criticism for the win. But of course, they get a much more brutal criticism if they lost the race. So they're stuck in this rock and a hard place situation where they have to win, but it's not going to feel like a win. I see this even in basic culture. Like when I came to the Czech Republic, if you're talking to someone, the first question is kind of like, are you married yet? Right? So that's the first achievement you've got to get. And you think, okay, I'll go get married. And on your wedding day, they'll be like, so you're going to have a kid? Like you're still not finished, right? And on the day that you give birth to your first kid, they'll be like, are you thinking about a second kid? And this shit just never ends. There is no accomplishment that satisfies anyone for more than a couple of hours before you get this immediately the sense that you lack something, that you failed. So success and failure become combined as a single thing. You can't have one without the other. But total failure you can have without any success. So your choice is really like, do I have a win fail or a fail fail? It's not a hard choice to make, but there's no win-win. There's no just I get to enjoy something and nobody takes anything away from me. There's also the problem where every time you succeed, it resets the bottom line. When a high achiever succeeds, that just becomes the new expectation. So your personal best becomes now the thing you can't go below, which of course is very hard to do, and eventually you are going to slip. So your personal best won't be something you can beat the next day, and now you feel like a failure, even though your original starting position was way down there. Right? So somebody who goes to the gym and they can't quite lift as much as they lifted last week feels like an abject failure, and they sort of fail to notice that they're lifting twice as much as they did just 2 months ago. That doesn't matter to them because the new baseline means that all taste and enjoyment is taken out of anything that isn't a win. And so people start to also do this weird correlation thing where they link things that aren't actually linked and they create these partnerships of good and bad. So let's say you're sick, it would be because you were happy last week. You'll think, ah, see, I deserve this. I knew this was coming. If your birthday sucked, it was because you got too excited about it. And if the client quits, it's because you were happy that you signed up a client last week. This idea that these are connected, that you're getting punished for each win, knowing that, of course, you could also just plain lose all of them, so you've only got this choice of win and lose together as a combo. So you actually start creating that combo by just arbitrarily connecting events that have nothing to do with each other. And of course, if you want help dealing with these kinds of issues, becoming more confident, get in touch, dan@brojo.org, and we'll maybe get together for a session to talk about it. So this fear, this cherophobia, keeps high achievers and leaders stuck on this horrible treadmill where the faster you run, the more you stay in the same place. You never feel safe to relax, enjoy whatever it is you've achieved, to kind of just chill and go like, I've done enough for quite a while actually. It just always feels like you've got to keep moving just to stay in the same place. There's a sense of competition. You can't relax because it will be taken away by some other. Sometimes this will be quite specific. I think at work, if you take a week off, somebody else will steal your job or your clients. And other times it's just a vague sense as you're relaxing, this agitation where you just feel like you should be doing something productive or something bad will happen. I remember seeing an interview with Will Smith way, way back in the day, the actor, where he was saying that he will outperform anybody else, that he doesn't care if you got more talent than him because he'll just stay on the treadmill longer than you and outpace you. And everyone praised him for that kind of advice or wisdom, and that was before we realized kind of how badly he's doing. I mean, if you read the book Will by Mark Manson, you're reading the book of a high achiever who cannot be satisfied, a person who won everything and still never felt good enough and still had a disastrous home life and family life because he was so obsessed with his success. He looked like he was having a good time. All the time he looked like he was having a good time. But if the book is even half true, behind that was just this constant need and anxiety and desperation. I mean, he often felt triumphant, but he felt the need to brag about his wins all the time as well, and that's not what a satisfied person does. So the solution to cheerophobia is deep and dark, but it's essentially about breaking patterns and behaving as somebody who's not superstitious. It will feel like massive risk taking, like leap of faith, where you're going to actually sit back and rest and relax and enjoy yourself and tempt fate into punishing you for doing so well. One of the ways to do this is set hard time limits, working 8 hours a day, for example, 5 days a week. Most of you probably do far more than that. Make it there's a certain time where work stops and you are not allowed to achieve anything. All right, that you're not allowed to be productive, that your phone's off, that you don't check emails, that you're not available, and just let the world burn without you. Let it all come crashing down if that's what's needed for you to have some time out to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Of course, redefining achievement will go a long way. Achievement is not about the so-called productivity of quantity, of just doing more and more and more and win, 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 up, up, up all the time. Achievement should be about quality of life over quantity of accomplishments. I mean, you having a wonderful half hour with your daughter, where it's just you and her together building memories, is such a bigger win than you getting the next contract with the big client who you're never going to remember when you're old. You also need to face your fear by actually taking on compliments and accolades. When somebody says you did well, just say thanks. Don't push back on it and try to undermine it. Be aware and shameless about your strengths. When someone asks what you do, tell them that you do it well if you do it well. And don't try to appear to be humble and modest and qualify yourself to try and prevent that fate from finding you. Just go, yeah, I'm doing well. I'm happy. You know that guilt you get when you're doing really well and then you're around someone who's not, and you feel the need to kind of outdo them with how much you're suffering. So you make up a big song and dance about how it looks like you're doing well, but you're actually not. How about just saying you're doing well, even if it makes them envious or resentful of you? And just hold it instead of trying to downplay it. And what's really important is measuring your skills and your efforts rather than your accomplishments, your results. What did you do and why did you do it? Not what did it cause? Because the results aren't actually under your control. You can do everything right and lose. You can do everything wrong and win. It's not really an accurate measure of who you are as a person. But why did you do the thing and how did you do it? Are you putting in efforts that you're proud of? Are you doing it for reasons that feel honorable to you? If that's the case, then that's what you measure, and you train yourself out of measuring the outcomes and results. In the next video, we're going to have a look at why high achievers are afraid of ghosts. That is, the difference between reality and imagination and how we respond to threats.